Hi, and welcome to Two Guys Philosophise with Sean Lake and Peter Wise. Today's episode is called Belief Systems and Gods, plus some other stuff, of course, as usual. Please remember to subscribe to our channel and enjoy. And hello again, we are back, whether you like it or not.
Hi everyone.
To talk some more
Nonsense.
I think. Today I was thinking, we talked before about the evolution of the brain, that it underwent a rapid evolution some hundreds of thousands of years ago. You know, man came down from the trees and, at some point there must have been a person, or maybe more than one person, who first asked themselves the question, what am I? Or who am I? And asking that question and asking the same question of all their surroundings, when the brain reached that point, it must have been quite a terrifying time, because it's suddenly as if that is the point where you become self-aware. The first man to say "Who am I?" is acknowledging that he is aware of himself. And he's aware of his surroundings, and there's all these things going on. There's thunder and lightning, and we want to talk a bit about belief systems as well. One of the first things I'd say is I wonder how early man dealt with that kind of stuff. I mean, when we became farmers, we had to have faith, right, that the crops would grow.
Yeah.
And in order for that to happen, we, ancient man, had to have belief that a certain God would help his crops grow.
Well, they didn't have to, but they did. Yeah.
So that's why I've always said that man invented God. Friedrich Nietzsche said the same thing as well, and that's where I got it from. And I think that was probably the time when, what did man start thinking about when he could start thinking on a different level, being self-aware?
Well, I don't think the first question was, who am I? I think the first question is, what am I? I think that was the first differentiation between it's not that is more of a spiritual and an advanced thought, if you understand what I'm saying.
Who am I?
Who am I? That's deeper consciousness. I think the initial consciousness would have gone like, what am I and why am I separate?
Yes, I agree.
Like, from everything.
Why do I feel? What does
that separateness mean?
Yeah, because he obviously felt separate.
Yeah.
Although I'm of the opinion that we're all connected and we're all as one, and
all that hippie
some
stuff.
sort of hippie stuff there. But I definitely think that that's the time when I don't know, maybe consciousness at that point started to grow as man became self-aware, more aware of his surroundings, and more inquisitive as to what blades of grass were made out of, how did trees grow, and these kind of things. Why did babies come out? They had, you've got to remember, early man did not realised that babies were born because you'd impregnated a woman 9 months earlier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, any comments on that?
Well, okay, so the concept of God and the concept of I and the concept of being separate. So I would imagine the first person, as you said, that realized that they were separate from everything else, that they were another thing, that they were human and that they were chimpanzees and giraffe and they were different to you, must have been incredibly frightening, because along with that separation comes loneliness. Now, I think that would probably have been our prime motive for developing tribes. Is once we realize that we are separate from this, we're an entity, we have a brain, we can think, we can do things, we kind of understood that we were terribly alone and in a very, very dangerous environment that we had no control over.
Yes.
So safety in numbers.
Okay. Yes.
So I think that's where we...
But animals do that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's a very primitive consciousness.
Okay. Fine.
That probably caused us to get together and to differentiate between us, me and you, people, humans, white people, black people, people with hair, people Neanderthal.
Yeah.
So we were able to differentiate. Yeah. But I don't think the question was like, who am I? Who am I? What is it? I think there was just a basic understanding that I'm different to that, and there are other entities like me, and I should be with those entities and not those entities, because these entities know what my needs are, know what their needs are, and we can cohesively work together as a team. Yeah. But in coming together as a team, you needed to have a central belief. So the tribe had to have a belief, because living in a world that is full of danger, where people are dying by the age of 12, is not a very secure environment to feel comfortable in. So I think the first thing that man did when they reached a level of consciousness was look for something bigger than themselves to, number one, make themselves feel protected, and two, give them a reason for being who they are. So I think one tribe would have seen maybe the sun and realized that the sun is a regular thing. It's huge, it's big, it comes up and it goes down, it's reliable, it's the biggest thing that we can see, it's powerful, it controls like where our plants grow, when they grow, how they grow.
That's how they discovered it.
And so that must be the thing that gives us life. Okay.
I think you're right there.
Then we had the sun worshippers.
Yeah, I think probably the sun was the first thing that was worshipped in any sort of godlike form. But I always had this picture in my mind of a man, silhouette. You're looking outwards to the sea, and there's a man sitting in front of you, looking outwards to the sea, and maybe he's taken some of those magic mushrooms that we talked about before, and he suddenly looks at his hand, and he thinks, "My God, what is this incredible thing?" And starts considering all the things that he does with his hands, and it's unbelievable how much your hands do. You don't realise that until you've broken a finger or broken a hand. You know what I mean? So I always kind of thought that man just generally, this was a sort of an evolution of thought.
But don't you think we realised that we were separate and a different consciousness when we were pre-human form, when we were apish?
There must have been some sort of well, obviously there were, species were separate, but I don't think an animal brain has the capability to think like that.
No.
I am separate from this. It just sees another animal as another animal, and it goes by its primitive senses of smell and sight, and is this a good thing or is this a dangerous thing, and it goes into its fight.
But that is separation.
Freeze.
I mean, that thought process.
Well, I think when man started becoming self-aware, that's when he started feeling the separation. That's when he started seeing things as being separate,
and being incredibly alone and vulnerable.
So man built up these kind of belief systems, and I think they evolved from belief probably in the sun first of all, then the stars, and then they had gods for the rivers and gods for the harvest and gods to help you get better and gods to put curses on your enemies or to make
demigods.
Well, they weren't demigods. To these people, these gods, or they call them gods, were the people who controlled their lives. That's why they made all these sacrifice and ritual and human sacrifice as well, just to please their gods, just so that their lives would be better.
Blood sacrifice. Somehow, I would have to research this, but somehow I think the moon was the first object to be worshipped, and I think that was because women sync themselves, their menstrual periods, to the moon. the cycles of the moon are the thing that they used to measure when to harvest by, when to plant by. So I think probably the moon would have been, and then from the moon you had all the Dionysic religions, the feminine energy religions developing. The sun worshipping religions only really started manifesting like in the ancient Egyptian times, 4,000, 5,000 years BC, and that was the sun god Ra. I mean, I don't know. Apparently, this world definitely has a bigger feminine aspect to it than it does men. Perhaps in the sense that women are better at controlling the world in a more reasonable way than. And what do you base that?
Well, women are different to men. They have a different way of seeing things. They deal with emotions better than men, in my experience as a therapist. So I don't know. It's just something I heard, and I don't really know what it means. But going back again to the belief systems, I think you really could equate that to a placebo effect. They made this kind of medicine for themselves, and this medicine was their gods.
Oh yes,
and it was their belief in these gods.
Okay, so this the difference between belief and faith. I think it was the faith is the placebo effect. You have to have faith that something's going to work.
You have to have faith that something's going to work. Yes, you do. But if you have faith, then you also have doubt. And
no, faith is blind. Faith is completely blind.
I don't. I think that's just a bit of a wishy-washy saying.
Well, no. I mean, the whole concept of faith is believing in something that you can't logically explain. That is what faith is. Faith is putting your trust in something that's not logically explainable, i.e. God, i.e. karma, i.e. whatever.
Yeah, but I'm saying that at a different, maybe at a subconscious level, if you say I have faith, you're also saying I have doubt. You're like a blind man who has to have somebody lead him, and the blind man has to have faith that his leader will not lead him into a road full of traffic. So
with faith you have to it's a relinquishment of everything. With faith it's a letting go and going, there's something bigger than me that is going to deal with this or change this or whatever. Belief is the understanding that if you have enough faith in this deity or being, that it will affect change in your life. Okay. You believe that, and therefore you have faith that is going to manifest.
Well, I think we now know that thoughts do manifest energy in this universe, and therefore
faith and intent. So
faith and intent. Exactly.
So what's the difference between faith and intent?
Intent is much deeper. I talk about a knowing that we have inside. I mean, I don't have to have faith or believe that I've got a right hand.
Yeah.
I know that I've got a right hand. It doesn't matter what you say to me.
Nothing's going to convince you otherwise.
Convince me otherwise. So,
but that's because you can see your hand.
Yeah.
Okay, but you can't see God.
Yeah. Well,
so you can believe in God, and you can have faith in God. But
nevertheless, beliefs and faiths are not the same as knowing. Some people call it a gut feeling. We've also spoken before about the fact that we do have two brains, and the brain which sits in our solar plexus region is probably our primary brain. So I don't know. I think what happens is you get an intrinsic knowing that something is happening or whatever, and then what happens
would you call that intuition?
yes, intuition, but deeper, deeper than intuition. You get an intrinsic knowing about something, like I know there is no God. Okay, you could say, how do you know? And I say, well, I don't need to prove it to you, because you'll never understand. It's something I know, and it's my truth, and it's.
Oh, okay, I hear you. Okay, so it's your personal knowing. It's your.
And
it's
it comes
not
from
necessarily truth based. It's not necessarily proof based.
And it doesn't have to be proof based.
Okay,
that's the thing.
Right.
And the other question, the other point is that there's many, but we're not only talking about religious belief systems here. We're talking about in believing in that a medication will work, believing that you're going to get to work safely without crashing your car. You know what I mean? Believing that your fridge is still going to be working in the morning. We have all these little beliefs, and some of them we don't even think about.
So something that flashed into my mind while you were talking is that belief could have started through superstition.
Superstition.
Yeah.
On the wall.
I mean,
very superstitious. Okay, so beliefs could have started through superstition. Stevie Wonder there for you.
Stevie Wonder there for you. Totally threw me off my track of thought.
Oh, sorry,
it was very
I
entertaining. It was like really
beliefs
really
and superstition you mentioned.
Yeah,
that's quite close.
If you had a superstition that if the sky was pink, it would be a good day tomorrow, and that superstition proved itself right, or nearly right, or approximately accurate, would that not then go from a superstition to a belief?
Yes, but not in the case of the sky being pink.
They say it's a pink sky at night is a shepherd's delight. That's not a Scottish superstition. If at night when the sun goes down and it's pink, tomorrow's going to be an awesome day to take your sheep out and let them graze.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know. Superstition.
That's gone from a superstition. It must have been a superstition. It must have been an assumption at some point.
Well, let's take the superstition of not walking underneath a ladder.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that also like a kind of a placebo effect thing? Because if you walk under a ladder, there's no odds that anything bad are going to happen to you. It's a completely illogical superstition.
I think if you're going to look at individual superstitions, you have to look at the origin of the superstition, and I think you've got to differentiate between modern superstitions and ancient superstitions. And these superpositions.
So do you think that this was the point when man first, or woman, or whoever first said, "What am I?" That is the point that consciousness became a part of that person, or that was a shift in consciousness, if you like, because evolution is not a straightforward process. There have been shifts, jumps in evolution. So why can there not be jumps in consciousness? That is, if you believe that consciousness is something which is
being baited right
is
now.
Still evolving. If you believe consciousness. Okay, well, we're going to leave that bait hanging for a minute while we have a quick coffee, and we'll be right back.
Hey, right back.
Okay.
Cool.
Ciao.
See you in a minute.
Right, so Sean, I'm baiting you apparently.
Baiting me, yes.
Yeah.
I've been baited really well by a professional, so there's no getting out of it now.
We were
talking about shifts in consciousness and where did that first shift happen and how did that first shift happen. So my theory is very controversial, and it's probably been disproven by now, but I strongly believe that the only way that we made the change in consciousness that we made over such a short period of time was because we ingested substances that made us see things differently, with a different perspective, from a different angle. And I think
hallucinogens.
Those things were probably taken initially by mistake, like a mushroom that's psychedelic, and that person sat in the cave and kind of went, ooh, wow, shadows on the wall, and things popping out, and there's other things that I don't see, And that's probably where I think our sense of there being other than this came from.
Other than the reality that we
live in, and that there are other, because when one is under the influence of psychedelics, one is aware of other, whether it be real or imagined or chemically induced. You do feel the presence of other entities, other beings. You do experience things that you can't explain in the physical world. So for someone with a primitive brain to eat a mushroom and suddenly, wham, bam, you can see things that other people don't see.
Right.
Must have been a huge shift. And remember this, I don't think this happened once, so it's not just like one person or one monkey ate a mushroom.
Yeah.
And I think this was over thousands of years that this consciousness became a consciousness that we possess. But interestingly enough, we should on another podcast probably go into the mycelium and the
we talked a bit
about that before,
Yeah.
and the GUYS consciousness and how it might be teaching us consciousness, but through the gift of mushrooms and so on. It's very interesting.
Yeah,
it's
interesting and it's complicated and it's quite bizarre.
Yeah.
But bringing it back to belief systems again. Okay, so we agree that it's always difficult to explain because talking in terms of time when there actually is no such thing as time. But the first man became self-aware, then first man started, and woman, excuse me, first started forming belief systems. At that time, they were probably eating hallucinogenic fungi. Do you think that going on a trip and then experiencing something completely different to their normal reality that they saw and that we see today caused them to understand that there are different beings and therefore they deified these different beings and these beings that they first saw when they were on their trips became their gods, this fantastic whatever, and they said, denoted that will be the god of our harvest because I saw this wonderful imagery.
This wonderful imagery. Look, Hancock would probably...
Graham Hancock.
He would probably agree with me on what I'm about to say, but I think... Just rephrase your question because I completely lost it there.
I always do this. I don't remember the questions. Oh yeah, it was. Don't you think that people who are having hallucinations and seeing other worldly beings then deified, made them into their gods? So
if you look at any of the cave paintings, especially in France, in the south of France, which was the pretty way back, and we were pretty primitive way back then, you have very, very interesting cave paintings. And if you are a person who has dabbled in psychedelics, especially DMT, which is probably the most accessible psychedelic at that time, you will notice a very interesting thing, in that all the paintings on the wall look like the entities that you see when you have a DMT trip. So those ghostly figures and those figures with auras and stuff like that, I think are a very primitive interpretation of what they were seeing. I think they were trying to explain in their no language, because to bring back that information, to explain another dimension or another perspective is really difficult with the language that we have. So I think that made us aware that there were things that we didn't see, and because we didn't see them doesn't necessarily mean that they don't exist. And therefore, this thing that protects us and that looks after us and whatever, and we can't see it, that must... I think that is where the idea of heaven, the separation between earth and spirituality, like kind of happened. Okay, because I think first of all, I think along with awareness comes selfishness. So when you become aware, it's all about I. Who am I? What am I? How do I fit into thing? I think the next step in consciousness is the awareness of others.
Yes,
okay.
But the awareness that we are actually connected.
That we are actually connected. Although we are separate beings, we are actually connected. Yes. On various levels to other beings.
Okay.
And I think that is a huge leap in understanding from being I am I and I search for food and I need a place to sleep to the tribal thought of there's a tribe, we all work together, we function better together. So the selfish awareness, I'm me, I need to survive, to the consciousness of group consciousness, put it that way.
Personally, for me, it was probably more necessarily a long time ago to have beliefs and faiths in certain things. But in 2019, it astounds me to find people having faiths and beliefs in things which have been so often disproved. You know what I mean? So I think that we are evolving now, and we are reaching a great state of change in the world, where we are coming to understand that having separate belief systems is no longer an advantage, because tribes, all have separate belief systems. Today we still have the remnants, I will say, of religion. They have their set of belief systems. Agnostics have their belief systems. Atheists have their belief systems. Scientists have their belief systems. Spiritualists and so on and so forth. So somehow, having all these different belief systems has caused nothing but fucking war on this planet. From the days the first tribe was, said, "My God is greater than your God," until this very day, we've had nothing but wars. Why? Why should there be wars? We are all human beings, and belief systems and faith, and you often get false faith as well. Has a lot to do with that, with why we are all warring with each other. So what has consciousness got to do with all of this anyway?
Okay, so I don't think you will ever get a consensus on belief systems. I don't think you will ever get a world where everyone is in absolute agreement on the experience of spirituality, because everyone has different experiences through their lives. And I think they base their beliefs and the systems that they work in, psychologically and personality-wise, on those experiences. So even if you had a one-world religion, there would still be, or a one-world belief, or a one-world understanding, there would still be slight variations of that understanding based on your understanding will be different if you're born in New York to what your understanding is if you're born in a little village in the middle of the Congo.
Right.
Okay, there will always be those slight variances. And then it's a circle, because those slight variances then become a separate entity, and it becomes again an organization or a religion or a group of people. So I don't know, are we doomed to this tribalism thing where we're not understanding that the tribe is the world? It's not.
Well, I think a great many
people around it.
A great many people are understanding that the tribe is the world. A great many people are getting more and more pissed off that they don't have as much control over their lives as we used to think we did. We
deluded ourselves into believing we did through religion and through
we deluded ourselves into thinking, now we've come to the point, through the internet where you can find out anything about anything, and you can discover that you can make friends with a guy in China and have chats with him on Facebook and things like that, even though you're different religions, different colours, different belief systems and all of that. So I would hope that there would be some time in the future, and this to me is part of consciousness developing itself, where all human beings will live in peace and harmony. And this brings into it what you briefly mentioned before, is intent. First of all, we have to understand that there is more to this world than just what we see. We have to understand that there are different realms. We also have to understand that there isn't one great deity whom we need to praise and worship in order that he will make our lives better. So we're in the process of moving towards, if you like, a more peaceful consciousness. We are coming to understand each other on this planet more and more through the internet. We're coming to understand. And if you understand something, you're not afraid of it. But if you don't understand something, you are afraid of it. For example, a lot of Christians don't quite understand how Islam works, therefore they are afraid of it, and vice versa. And I'm just picking.
Yes, if you took the Quran and the Bible and put them together, they're basically the same story.
They are the same, and that's a great shame. And it's only because we've talked about the Bible before. We'll talk about it again, but it's a great shame because the Bible is just written by too many people, hundreds and hundreds of people over thousands of years. But I think that, if you get a whole load of people, okay, we're talking about the Bible and prayer, for example. If you get a whole load of people and they pray with a deep intent, not just I intend to go shopping tomorrow, or I intend to buy
with meaning and with passion and
with absolute
and conviction,
gutful devotion, then that kind of thought, and if you get a lot of people, then that kind of thought energy of intending for the world to be a peaceful place will actually manifest into reality. So what I'm saying, guys, is if we all had the intentions, the great intentions of this world being a peaceful place, it will be a peaceful place. But it needs to be deep intention, it needs to be maybe in a state of slight meditation or
maybe
slight
just
trance.
Be brought into consciousness.
What do you mean?
Just brought into consciousness, because, okay, you are speaking as if we naturally hate each other, or we naturally
not hate, but
we naturally have this like aversion to other people, and I think that is a line that's been fed to us through society. Because if you break it down to your basic, your neighborhood, okay, your neighbor is of a different color skin to what you are, and that color skin is at war with your color skin in our country right now at the moment. But does your neighbor want to come over and kill you? Do you want to go over and kill him? Is there any animosity between the two of you? No. Essentially, the two of you just really want to get on. You just really want to get on with your lives as best as you can, not get involved with anything. What brings the involvement is the politicians. It's the people that want to cause the separation so that they can achieve their control or whatever they gain from being politicians. But I don't think in Haiti we want to hate each other. I think in Haiti we just want to get on. I think we just want to.
I agree.
We just want to do what we have to do and get through the day and
but I don't
get
think
through it happily.
I don't think it was always like that. I think hate is too strong a word, but to be scared of other tribes, would have been a natural thing. Scared that they're going to take your animals, your harvest, or your women, or whatever. But the main problem with belief systems, right, is that they breed fanatics. Why do we need to have a belief in anything at all?
Let's take veganism. Let's take veganism. for an example. Sorry, vegans, but like you guys are pretty much like a freaking religious organization.
My daughter's a vegan.
No,
man.
seriously, guys. Like, do you really give it up? Okay, it's like, but let's take veganism. In my opinion, people that are these devout vegans who will not eat anything that's been touched by an animal or whatever, it's
well, that's a belief system.
It's a belief system, but why do they adopt that belief system? Could it be because that belief system keeps their mind off the real issues that they face, that they could lose their job at any time, that there is no real security in the world, that anything could happen at any moment, you have absolutely no control, and you live in a totally chaotic system? Does that belief system is it not a transference? Is it just not something that's a lot easier to control, and therefore you place your focus on it, than your actual life? Because if you're really honest with yourself, you have no control over your life at all. Nothing. You could be run over by a car tomorrow.
Yeah.
You could lose your job. The country you live in could be taken over. There could be a coup. Your bank that you've invested all your life savings could disintegrate. There is no security. That is all an illusion.
But the vegan business, well, like you say, it's a belief system.
Atheists are the biggest religion in the world right now, as far as I'm concerned.
Pretty much. I think no religion is atheist is a non-word in my opinion.
What shocked me was when you pulled up those stats on how many, and I do not mean at all to rag on Christians. Understand that I was a Christian, so it's the only reference point that I have to come back to, but or to relate to. I was never a Hindi, I was never a Buddhist, but I've had the Christian experience, so I can speak from that filter. It is shocking to me that 32% of the world is Christian. 32% of the world believe a fairy story. There's quite obviously a fairy story, quite obviously been proven to be a fairy story, quite obviously by theological scholars that have told church-going people that this is a metaphor. This whole book is a metaphor. It's not literal. It's a metaphor. Yet you still have 32% of people who want to believe in the spaghetti flying monster. Okay, why? Because you have to occupy your time with the spaghetti flying monster. You have to pray 3 times a day. You have to give 10% of what you owe. You have to go to church. You have to be involved in the community. You have to. So suddenly you are not left alone to think about the chaos that you live in. Well, suddenly you're in a very organized system, and it's very comfortable.
Yeah. One thing we haven't sort of brought into the conversation yet is, where does the human mind, or the mind, fit into all of this with regard to consciousness? And because, for example, certain different belief systems resonate differently with different people.
Yeah.
So,
do they, or are you not just born into a certain?
Well, that's what I was coming to. And anyway, Aristotle said, thousands of years ago, give me the child until he was 7 and I will give you the adult. So our belief systems are ingrained into us when we're very, very young children. And sometimes that's fine. We're happy to believe in a God in the sky, and we're happy to think that if we pray hard, things, good things will happen.
But are we happy? I don't think people that have these belief systems are happy. I think that's why they have these.
So you think they're kidding themselves that they're happy?
Yes, it's
because
a complete.
I agree
it's
with
a complete.
that.
Look, I will tell you, and this is why I must say, Christians. I love Christians.
I love everybody.
Like your heart is in the right place, and you want to do the right thing, and I totally respect that. I absolutely do.
God, you're being so
PC
demeaning
right now. I'm trying to get monetized. Dare I say?
We love everyone of all religions, and we do.
and we do. And having said that, I've forgotten totally where I was going. Where I was going with it. Remind me quickly.
You always ask me to remind you. And
I know.
I can never remind
In doing
you.
that, it gives me a couple of seconds to think about what I was...
we were talking about how we both found out the figures of 32% of the world would call themselves Christian, and I think it was 25% would call themselves Muslim, and 2% was 14% Catholic, something like that.
I just think it's easier to believe in a fairy story than it is to believe that you're in a totally chaotic environment that you have absolutely no control over.
Well, people won't be, some people have to cling on to the belief that there is going to be a choice between heaven and hell, and that does help with their, moral stance in life, if they take the good moral parts of the Bible, not the bad. You can't use it as a moral guide because it's awful. These people are sort of, they're happy with what they're doing. They get, it's advantageous for them to believe in a God rather than to say, okay, after I die, I'm just going to be worm food. Because
to take responsibility for your own life.
Well, we can't. We're so scared of death that a lot of people have happier lives by thinking that there is a God, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I unfortunately don't believe that there is a God, and therefore I have to decide or try and find out what's going to happen to me after I die, which is why I'm so interested in the human mind, in consciousness, in further realms, in other vibrations, because I know when I die from this body, I will just go back to my constituent parts and down to the smaller subatomic particles, and after that I don't know what's going to happen to me, myself. What I know as myself.
I hear what you're saying, and definitely the fear of death is it's a terrible thing, and it can lead us to look for temporary band-aids in terms of religion and stuff like that,
and drugs as well,
and drugs as well. But I don't know why I'm getting this brain fog.
You've just forgotten completely what we were talking about again.
Completely forgotten what we were talking about again.
Okay, well,
it's been a long day.
Yeah, again, it's talking about how people still cling on to their beliefs because they're afraid of death.
Oh yes, and the 32%.
But the thing is this: I think we can kind of wind this up now on this thought. We've discussed about how belief systems maybe came into being. I've said that I think belief systems create wars, and that we're kind of moving on from that now, where we can create peace. And go on, Sean.
Sorry, it came back to me. The memory came back to me. All right,
you go through.
We were talking about God.
What's the matter with you today, man? This guy is in and out of this room.
I have all of a sudden the worst brain fog. I just cannot hold on to two sentences at the same time. It's ridiculous.
I don't know why. I need a new.
Why? Well, I was so sharp.
Sean,
I was so sharp earlier this morning. What on earth is?
I don't know. But you're fired.
I'm fired. Yeah. No. Absolutely.
All right. So.
Oh yes, God. Right. So you don't believe in a God. I do.
Right.
Which is interesting.
Right.
Okay. I do believe that there is a higher being.
Okay.
You don't believe there is a higher being.
Not a being. No.
I do believe the higher being is myself, and that I am God, because I'm an expression of the thing that created me, assuming that there was something that created me.
Okay.
But if there was anything that was going to create this mess, it was going to be me. You know what I'm saying? Right. So no one else would come up with this recipe.
So what you're saying is you've actually created your reality.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that's a good point to stop, folks, and we'll say good morning, goodbye, good afternoon, good night, and we'll catch up with you next time.
Cheers. Over.
And that's where we'll leave it for this week. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. And please do remember to subscribe to our channel. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.